Hello and welcome to your monthly Q&A video. Just in case you're joining us for the first time, these Q&A videos are connected to a certain tier of the Patreon campaign. Each month, anyone on that tier can submit a question and I will answer it right here. Our first question this time around comes from Evan, and Evan asks, who are your favorite characters in Game of Thrones? Let's say a top 3. I was kind of surprised that I hadn't put more thought into my answer to this question prior to getting it here for the Q&A video, but in thinking about it right off the bat, I was kind of surprised by how drawn I am to most of the supporting characters. And, you know, in Game of Thrones, it's been running for a long, long time now, and we've seen a lot of characters grow a lot, but from season to season, sometimes certain character arcs have hit lulls. For example, Arya used to be one of my favorites, but I think her journey had a couple of weak spots, so she didn't manage to crack my top 3 here, but I still do love her. Same goes for Dany, Jon Snow. A lot of them have been great anchors to this show overall, but in terms of my draw to some of the main characters, I've got to give my number 3 slot to Cersei. She has easily been one of the most fascinating characters for me to track, and I think that stems from this combination she's got of pure evil flowing through her veins, but also a really deep and honest love for her children, and that combination proved to be a pretty explosive one for this character. And another thing that I almost admire about the character in a way is when a character is this evil, but you can find these human qualities to relate to. And for me, that has been her love for her children, her dedication to them, and also just her upbringing as a Lannister, and how that has kind of infused her with this insatiable need for control and power, but how the structure in Game of Thrones doesn't let her have it, or at least doesn't let her have it until well into the show. And at this point, I'm really curious to see what happens next for her, especially when you consider the fact that she's kind of veered so far away from Tyrion and also Jaime's journey. The two of them have turned into heroes, and Cersei just goes deeper and deeper into the darkness of being a character that everybody loves to hate. And hey, that is a lot for her to shoulder. But at this point in the show's run, what she is going to do next is the thing that, in a twisted way, I'm kind of looking forward to seeing the most. My number 2 character is Brienne of Tarth. She's just been a natural favorite since the second she was introduced on the show. And hey, coming from a female perspective, and especially one that when I envision where I might want to fall in Game of Thrones world, it would probably be along the lines of, let's say, a Brienne or Arya. I just would not want to be doing the power plays in a pretty castle somewhere. So Brienne has always been someone I connected to, and just to see her show up all the male soldiers on the battlefield time and time again has really been something else. And I'm also someone who greatly values loyalty in the real world, and who is more loyal and dedicated than Brienne? And just from a writing perspective, I think her journey has been beautifully carved out, and how she's paired with so many different characters and has such moving and engaging relationships with each and every single one of them that wind up adding to her character and also the person she's paired with. I have always been rooting for her, and I doubt that's going to stop anytime soon. Now for my favorite, my number 1 right now is Tyrion. From an entertainment perspective, Peter Dinklage as Tyrion has always been a winner. He just brings so much energy and charisma to the show, and it's kind of infectious, and right from the start just made him another easy favorite for the show. And just looking at Tyrion and how he's developed over the seasons, yeah, he has done some pretty bad things, but in particular, I think he's the kind of character who really balances knowing how to play the game, but also valuing being a good person very, very well, because yeah, you know, you want to root for someone with a good heart and good intentions, but in a world like Game of Thrones, you can't only be good to the point of being stupid and risking your life and everything you're fighting for. And I think Tyrion has been one of those characters who's balanced those qualities really well and in a realistic way, where every single step he takes, you're able to track and believe and understand everything he's doing. And his connection with everybody he's been paired with over the course of the show has really been something else too. Actually, it's kind of similar to Brienne, where every connection he has made has brought something out in his character, also the other character, and with him in particular, it also adds to the overall story of the show and the direction this whole power struggle has taken. So yeah, I'm a big fan of Tyrion, clearly also a fan of Brienne and Cersei too, but that list of characters I love on this show just goes on and on and on, and I most certainly can't wait for it to finally return. All right, our next question today is one from Ryan. He asks, what's your top 5 most overhyped actor, actress of the last 5 years? When I hear the word overhyped, I normally directly connect it to the idea of celebrity more so than acting ability and talent. Like, for example, think about the Twilight ensemble. When those movies just took off, that whole ensemble basically became uber famous. And if those movies weren't geared towards you as a moviegoer, hey, you might look at them and say, oh, those kids are overhyped, when really, in the end, I think a lot of them turned out to be very, very talented. So I like to take that out of this question. But even when I think about, let's say, an overhyped performance that got more credit than it deserved, I can't really think of all that much. So instead, I'm going to name a couple of actors that I admire that have disappointed me in their choices the last few years. And at the top of the list right now is Melissa McCarthy. I really do think she is just a big ball of talent and ability, but oftentimes, and especially recently, I guess in the last 5 years, we've seen her align herself with, I think, scripts and films overall that are not quite at her level. Spy, I can't recommend enough. But this year, for instance, I think Life of the Party was kind of disappointing, and then Happy Time Murders, if you watch my review, you know I really didn't like that movie, and I'm a little disappointed that she was part of it at all, because I really did think she did good work in that, but everything else was just rock bottom. So I want to see her get some good things on the resume right now, and I think we might have one coming our way in Can You Ever Forgive Me? That one's supposed to play at TIFF. Fingers crossed I get the chance to see it, because that's easily one of my most anticipated movies for the rest of the year. Another person I have on the list, Joey King. I've seen her in a lot of things. I know she is insanely talented, but she's so much better than her 2 more recent releases, and it's Slender Man and Wish Upon, although I know a lot of people do love her in The Kissing Booth, which is a Netflix movie that just came out recently. I have to check that out, but I want to see her make a really big name for herself, and I don't think she's going to do that with films like Slender Man and Wish Upon. Another one, Matt Damon. Matt Damon is super talented. You don't need me to tell you that, but as of late, I don't think he has picked the best roles. Downsizing was a huge disappointment. I didn't really like Suburbicon. And then also, even when I go to something like Unsane, it was a cameo that just didn't really work well. And it's a movie that I love, but I think he came pretty close to taking me out of it. And then another obvious one that I have to throw on this list is Adam Sandler. I grew up watching his stuff over and over again, in particular Happy Gilmore, Billy Madison. Even to this day, I could probably still quote Billy Madison from start to finish. But as of late, he hasn't been delivering good stuff, and I would probably say that in the last 5 years, if that's what we're focusing on, I wouldn't be surprised if one of his movies for every single one of those 5 years made it on a significant amount of worst of the year lists. He just has kind of lost that comedic touch that made him so big to begin with. And a lot of his comedies that I've seen also don't have that heart too, because Billy Madison, you could look at it and yeah, it's zany and super silly, but there is that emotional core to it, and I think that really does enhance the comedy overall. So I kind of want to see him take a step back from some of the stuff that he's doing right now and really get back to the heart of what made him pop to begin with, because for me, it was really something special. Now we're moving on to question number 3, and this is from Michael. Michael wants to know, what does the Movie Talk producer do? So in case you guys didn't know, I recently took over Movie Talk producing duties from Mark Riley, who's now focusing more on Collider Live, and the new job changed up my day quite a bit. Basically, what I'm doing now in order to get the show ready is the second I get into the office, I am combing the web for movie news. I'm doing that. I'm also talking a lot to the Collider.com team to see what they're working on. And then right around midday, I would say, I have a preliminary lineup in mind. That way, the team can get to work on the graphics we need for the show. But then, roughly around 2 o'clock, I would say I'd come a step closer to locking that lineup. And then at 3 o'clock, it is officially locked. Show notes are sent out. And then at 3:30, we have our pre-production meeting. And then it's on to the set, ready for showtime. But of course, you might have noticed that leaves a pretty big gap for breaking news, and we do have the luxury, if something drops after I send the show notes, we could just add it up top. That way we are covering everything that broke that day. So that's pretty much it. Then we do the show, we wrap up, I go to bed, wake up, and do it all again. But this has really been a nice treat, and I kind of love my bigger role in the show because, I mean, movie talk is one of my favorites, and I love being a part of it. I love working so much with Mark Ellis. It's really just been a pleasure and treat, and I'm kind of thankful that that opportunity fell into my lap recently. So it's been great. We've got one more question to hit today, and it's one from Kavi, who asks, there are many opinions out there, of course, but I'm curious to know what movies are on your personal list for sequels that are better than the original. I gotta get some of the obvious ones out of the way first because I do prefer A New Hope to Empire, I do prefer Alien to Aliens, but I love all four. And then when it comes to Evil Dead, for instance, Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2, I love them, but I love them for different reasons because they're kind of different movies with different vibes and different tones, and I appreciate them for different reasons, so I can't really compare those. But some recent examples, I would say, would be Captain America Winter Soldier and then Captain America Civil War, because Civil War is my favorite of the Captain America series. Another Marvel example for you, Thor Ragnarok. Thor Ragnarok is hands down the best Thor movie. Then on top of that, you guys probably know I'm a really big Hunger Games fan. My favorite in that franchise is Catching Fire. It was my favorite book too. There is something about the quarter quell idea that I think really spoke to me, even more so than just the baseline event of the Hunger Games. So I would definitely put that on the top of my Hunger Games list. We've also got Mad Max Fury Road. I appreciate the Mad Max movies, but Mad Max Fury Road struck a chord in a whole new way. I mean, that was my favorite movie of the year it came out, and I was really surprised because going into its release, while I did appreciate the footage I had seen, I didn't really think that the Mad Max franchise was for me, and they proved me wrong. I love that movie. I also love Addams Family Values. You guys know I went to sleepaway camp, so that's why the sequel always struck a chord with me more so than the original. I just love that portion of the movie. It's one of those ones that I grew up watching and rewatching. I also have to give the Conjuring universe a shout out right now, especially with The Nun coming out soon, because as you guys may know, I was extremely disappointed in the first Annabelle movie. I had been coming off of loving The Conjuring. Speaking of favorite movies of the year, that year, Conjuring was my favorite movie, and I was so pumped for Annabelle, and then I was extremely disappointed. But then David Sandberg turned it around big time with Annabelle Creation. It is such an improvement on the original. I applaud them for that. So, Kavi, there you go. Those are some answers for you. I just want to take another moment to thank everybody who sent in questions. We had Evan, Ryan, Michael, and Kavi. These four here are longtime supporters, people that I've gotten the chance to talk to quite a bit, and they're good people. Thank you guys so much for being here, for continuing to support this campaign. Dewey really appreciates it too. That's why he sat up and wanted to give some FaceTime right now. Thank you to everybody watching this video right now. Please don't forget to like and share, and I'll see you next month with another Q&A video.